So this is was a 1 liter turbo Fiesta 5-speed street car. We recently stripped it and started building it, and it's going to be a Fiesta R2T, which is the Fiesta R2 based on the 1 liter EcoBoost model. So far we've obviously stripped the interior out and stripped the car down, and first step we did was to seam weld it, strip out some of the sound deadening and seam sealer and stuff like that. And now we've got other welding items going in, the cages started going in, and we're going from there. So the seam welding, you're basically going and putting little strips of weld to kind of reinforce the shell where it's held together just by spot welds. You're putting some little bit of weld in between some of those spot welds so that everything is a little stiffer. Over the years of the car getting pounded as a rally car, it'll hold together a little bit better, and stuff like that. So the goal is basically, you don't want to fully weld everything, but we try to, in some of the, especially the more critical areas, just get some weld in between some of those spot welds so that everything is a little bit stronger. Weld nuts we got going in, so we got a bunch up here, and these are going to hold in stuff like the mud flaps, some of the fender liners. We've got a couple here that are going to hold a catch tank for oil vapors. We've got a bunch inside, so we're going to put a lot of weld nuts in this thing to hold some of the extra stuff that we're going to start bolting on the car once it's painted. Cage is part of the R2 kit, so it's a homologated cage, so it comes as a pre-bent, pre-notched kit from M-Sport. So the first step in installing one of these cages, because everything comes pre-made, is you got to tack it all in first, because if you start welding stuff in and you have something slightly out of place, you might get to the last section of the cage and realize it doesn't fit anymore. So first step our guy installing the cage is going to do is go through and just tack every single bar into place. Then we'll start breaking some of those tacks apart so we can go back and fully weld each section of the cage, but that way he knows exactly where every bar is supposed to go. So a homologated cage like this compared to a cage that someone's built to, say, like some of the FIA Article 253, etc. The difference is, because it's homologated, it's gone through some testing processes. They are allowed to use different size tubing, different thickness tubing. There's some elements to the design that are a little bit different than what you might normally find in a regular cage. So stuff like some of the way stuff is bent, or they've actually updated the R2 cage, but this used to be a 2-piece door bar with a single piece A-pillar support and stuff like that. Might not be legal with a normal cage, but because this is a homologated cage, they can do slightly different stuff like that. Material is T45, so it's an alloy, and it is stronger than your regular mild steel tubing. So what you'll find is a lot of the bars are quite a bit thinner than what you might find if you built your cage to Rally America or NASA or Cars specs. This stuff all comes in the kit, so there's a bunch of parts that we're going to weld onto the shell. So like these are new motor mounts. They're going to go walk over here. So motor mounts that are going to go something like, how's that go? Like that. So we're going to take these parts as we start building the car and, you know, grind back the areas and weld them in, and that's kind of, some of these parts are really what's going to make it a rally car. So once all the welding stuff is done, the cage is done, it's going to go down and get prepped for paint and then get painted, and then it'll come back over here and start getting assembled.